5 songs on my fantasy playlist. Man. Message in a Bottle by the Police. Why? Because there's all these messages adrift, and they all 100 million bottles wash up on the shore. This is an old one. Pink Floyd, We Don't Need No Education, ironically, because the youth and the kids that we are with today don't need to be told how to interact with this technology. If anything, there's a generational gap between those folks that live and were born with technology and those that, frankly are older than that generation and are having to grapple with it, and they're the ones that need the education. I'm gonna have to stop at 3 if I can think of a third one. What else would I take on a fantasy trip? Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody from Night at the Opera, because it's so long and I can sing it on karaoke.
3 songs on my playlist. Sugar Magnolia, Stairway to Heaven, and probably Paranoid from Black Sabbath. I don't know if you've gotten those before.
I can say that's first.
Yeah, okay. It's not Mozart.
5 things you can always find in my refrigerator. First and foremost is restaurant doggy bags. I eat out a lot more than I probably should, and as such, we bring a lot of food home. Secondly, milk. My daughter is an avid fanatic of milk and can't consume enough of that. And I'd say Ben & Jerry's ice cream is another component that falls within that category. And I would throw in minced garlic, because everything tastes better with minced garlic. And lastly, apples.
My favorite meal is pretty much any fresh vegetable right out of the garden. So I might like to eat a huge pile of fresh tomatoes or zucchini or anything else. Bring it on.
What's your favorite movie and why?
My favorite movie is Top Gun. I always wanted to get in the Air Force, I never did, and I love watching that movie. Think of what it could have been like.
How do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day in Ireland?
Oh, how do we celebrate? Well, not that different. I think it's the big parade, that occurs, and it's in a way it was a very traditional. But Ireland has transformed a lot itself as a society. So today, the whole St. Patrick's Day event is a much more universal, or much more theatre and new forms of music and stuff like that. It's a much more multicultural and different type of experience than it was 20 years ago.
My first job ever was at a Hobby Lobby, and I was in charge of stocking the shelves, basically. So I think actually in a weird way that might have incorporated a little bit. If you think about the way you stock a shelf, where you put different products, that's part of a user experience, right? As someone comes into the store, it's not, at that time, obviously not a digital experience, but there's a method to the madness in the way that a store is stocked and how you actually stock the shelves. And so even from that perspective, you start thinking about, is this where people would expect it to be, right? And that is still part of the experience that you carry forward, even though now we're talking about a digital environment instead of a brick and mortar store.
What was my first job? Okay, that was a bad question. Anyway, I got fired when I was 15 from school. Then I was working as a typesetter. Then I got bored with 18, and then I went to India. I was trained as a yoga teacher. Then I got bored in India, so I went to Latin America. I studied with American Indians in South America. I traveled a lot, and then I did different things. I started drug therapy centers. I worked with the Dalai Lama. I did a lot of different things. I had a flower shop, no, 3. And since 10 years I'm doing this, and I'm quite happy because it connects consciousness and technology to bring people to the next level.
If you were not doing the job you're doing now, what would be your ideal job?
So I'm only 5 months into working with the Bull, so it's still fairly new, and it's definitely still at the place where it feels like a dream job. You know, combining sports, which I've always loved, and digital, which I've always loved, into one job and having that be what I do. Not even 9 to 5. This is like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. most days. It's an amazing job. I think if I wasn't doing this, I mean, my lottery job, if you will, is soccer coach. You know, going back to grassroots, working with kids, training them on soccer. But as far as like a digital role goes, I mean, working in professional sports and digital is a pretty nice space to work in.
When I was young, I wanted to be a lot of things. What I struggled with growing up, and it's not something I figured out until later in my career, was I was trying to be, or thought I had to be, something that was valid or acceptable to my ecosystem. Whenever I would go to work or work for corporations and I'd have ideas and have those ideas shot down, or, you know, it was just constantly, I was constantly, as a child up until my young adulthood, told, stop it. You realize maybe there's a way to just understand this better. And I think the best managers are actually leaders, where they understand the differences and the nuances of the people who work for them. What I wanted to be and what I'm doing now, completely different, but I found my sense of purpose in realizing that maybe conventions are great and cultures are great, but also at the same time, I mean, the reality is the world's changing. And so we kind of need some different people thinking in different ways to sort of teach us what to do, not just differently, but how to be more relevant in a changing world.
What I have in mind when I was young, what I would be, interesting question. I think as my secret dream has always been to be an astronaut, and that's where my passion for science and for new technology came. I had a computer since I was 7, starting with the first computer back in the days. Learn a lot of things, but on the other side, the desire of creating something with that was definitely also pushing my entrepreneur mindset, even if at this period of time I was not even knowing what was an entrepreneur.
As a child, I wanted to be what I actually am, which is a writer. I write blogs and white papers and do writing for my day job, but outside of that I write comic books, research books, business books, and high adventure fiction. I write Sherlock Holmes and other short stories and novellas. So.
If you had to take a vacation tomorrow, where would it be?
So I took a vacation 2 weeks ago and we came to Chicago. We were going to Puerto Rico, but it forecast rain, and we said, why go to the beach for rain? So we both love Chicago. We came here from Atlanta.
Did you get here were you here for the Cubs celebration?
We were here for the series. So stayed at the Blackstone. It was a great hotel. Had a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Great town.
If I'm in an airport and I could buy a ticket anywhere tomorrow, I would probably buy a ticket to Africa. And that would be because I want to go hike Kilimanjaro, because it's probably the only mountain of a significance that I can get away with hiking. And I think it would be a fascinating experience.
Are you a hiker?
I like the outdoors and I like adventure. I'm not an avid mountain climber, but that seems to be something that's attainable and not unrealistic like Everest.
If you could be a superhero, who would it be and why?
Gosh. I guess I would, I'd be interested in being Aquaman. You know, I think that I like to spend a lot of time on the water, and without the constraints of needing to breathe air, that would be pretty interesting.
Wow, in another life, what would I be doing? I have no idea how to answer that one. If I was in another life, what would I be doing? I don't know. You know, I'm really grateful to be in the career I'm in here at this point in time. And I think for all of us in marketing, you know, it's very challenging dealing with this tremendous amount of change. But on the other hand, how incredibly exciting. I mean, really, everyone in marketing today is pioneering a new road. I mean, the things we figure out, you know, the way we redefine marketing in this environment are going to be the things that become the best practices, the textbooks, you know, for generations of marketers to come. And it's a real privilege to have an opportunity to be a part of that.